Good morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, what have I got for you lovely lot today? Well, have you ever had one of those days where you really struggle to try and think of something to paint? Well, I think that's the time where you can go back to basics. So what I've got for you today is something slightly different. It's just 3 simple exercises in watercolour, and this is great for beginners as well as those of you who are more advanced. So these exercises are just something to try and get you back into the flow of painting. You don't have to frame them, you don't have to even show them to anyone. They're just a nice learning exercise. So come and join me and we'll paint these step by step together. Okay, so for today's materials, the paper I'm using on all 3 exercises is some Saunders Waterford. It's 100% cotton. It's a rough texture, but an ordinary cold press texture would be fine. It's on a block, so won't need stretching, but as always, any decent watercolour paper will do. So on this exercise, my colours are cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, yellow ochre, dioxazine purple and French ultramarine, and just 3 brushes from my range, 3/4 inch flat, number 12 and number 6 round. So for this first exercise, this is a simple African scene using a very limited palette. Off we go! So start by completely wetting the whole sheet with clean water, then using a flat brush I'm putting in with big broad strokes this yellow mix. And then painting into the wet wash some cadmium orange. Then up from the bottom some yellow ochre, which is a touch more of a sandy colour for the ground. Next, straight in with the purple mix, and a flat brush is perfect for this as you can twist it to get some narrow strokes but also some wide blobby strokes, and everything done quickly into the wet wash. So here I'm making sure my round brush is nice and dry, then I'm lifting out a few suggestions of light. So here the important thing, leave it to dry naturally, let the paint do its thing and don't fiddle. Now I haven't included the drying time in these 10-minute exercises, so we can reckon probably in total 20 minutes. Next, I'm using my number 6 brush and the same purple. Now I'm keeping the brush flat to the paper and picking up its texture for this dry brush technique. Then in with the trunk. Less is more, you don't have to paint in every branch. And slightly lighter value for these trees here in the distance. quick whoosh here and again picking up the texture of the paper, all giving the suggestion of detail without painting detail. There we go, all done in just over 10 minutes, not including drying time. Next, a simple apple, and this is an exercise I often use in my beginners classes, and it teaches paint consistency and how to let the colour blend directly on the paper. My colours are cadmium yellow, orange and red, alizarin crimson, sap green and some moon glow, which is by Daniel Smith's, but basically any grey colour will do. And just one brush from my range, a number 12 round. Now always start with the lightest colour first and a good watery mix of cadmium yellow. Then straight away drop into one side some cadmium orange. And then some sap green on the opposite side. Then a nice strong dollop of cadmium red or any bright red. So here I'm using my damp brush to lift out a subtle highlight, and here a little dab with a tissue. Here I'm dropping in, as well as some more sap green, some big dollops of clean water to force a few back runs or cauliflowers. I do have a video on this subject, link above if you're interested. And you can see here the amazing effects created by dropping in that clean water, purposely giving the paint different drying times and producing these organic effects that you just couldn't try and paint. So next I'm painting in a small U shape of clean water and then dropping in a little touch of burnt umber into the bottom, creating a soft graduated wash as the paint slowly creeps up into the wet area. So next let's put in a shadow to help locate the apple onto the paper. So our light source is coming from the left, so our shadow will be down here on the right. So I'm re-wetting all the bottom corner and then adding in a grey, and any grey colour will do. Then to finish off, a tiny bit of detail with some alizarin crimson, but less is more, just a few little strokes. Now before we go on to the final exercise, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about paint control. Now some artists will like to have total control over every brush stroke, and I'll paint in this way sometimes too, as shown here. And others want no control at all and will just throw paint at the paper and see what happens. And both are perfectly good ways to paint. Now personally, I enjoy the most something just between the two. I like to have a plan and a reasonable idea of what the finished work is going to look like. But I love the spontaneity and the excitement of never really knowing what you're going to get when you leave the paint to do its own thing and work its magic for you. I call it being on the edge of control, and for me that's when watercolour is at its best. Okay, so for this last exercise, we're really going to loosen up and just see what happens. My colours are cadmium red. Now I'm using magenta, but any pinkish colour will do. Sap green and Payne's grey, and just 2 brushes from my range, number 12 and number 6 round. I'm going to lightly spray the paper first, but not saturating it. And then in with some bright red with my brush flat on its side. Big, bold strokes, and a big blob of clean water dropped in. Straight in with some Payne's grey and let it bleed into the flower above. Now with some clean water again, I'm just dragging this down, super wet, lots of blending and no fiddling. Here I'm dropping in a much cooler pinky colour into the wet wash. And a few little dabs here with a tissue to create some texture to the petals. More dabs of clean water into the damp wash. Now for the leaves and stems, Payne's grey again, but introducing in a little bit of sap green into the wet. And of course a little bit of splattering. And you can see here, now that it's totally dried, these lovely effects. As I said before, it's just something you couldn't possibly try and paint. So for the final little detail, I'm going to add in with a touch of white gouache just to define a couple of the petals here. There we go, all done, this time in just under 10 minutes. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did and you give all 3 of them a go. And always remember, you don't have to copy mine exactly, just make them your own. And as always, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, it is free. Leave a comment, I do read every single one, and I'd always like to say a super big thanks to all of you who follow along each week. It really is appreciated. So take care everyone, and I'll see you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Bye for now.